course, we might post it.
All right. Someone want to read the res?
Okay. It is the U.S. federal government should withhold funding for research in strong artificial intelligence.
I'm sorry, with the word strong?
Strong. Yeah.
So withhold funding
For research in strong artificial intelligence.
withhold funding.
Is everybody ready?
No.
No. Okay.
I got it.
Okay, I'm good now.
You're good? Okay. Congratulations, everyone made it this far. Made it to the hotel. Okay. So with that, I will start my time now. We affirm the resolution that the U.S. federal government should withhold funding for research in strong artificial intelligence. First is a couple observations about the round. This is a policy round, as indicated by the word should in the resolution. That means that you judges should be evaluating this round on net benefits, basically which world the affirmation of the negation creates the most net benefits for the most amount of people. The second observation is some definitions. So according to UC Berkeley, strong artificial intelligence is the point when the machine's intellectual capabilities are functionally equal to humans. I'll repeat that. The point when machine intellectual capabilities are functionally equal to humans. So if you think about Terminator, they have the same intellectual thing. That's a bit, Okay, so some background on this real quick. The idea of strong artificial intelligence has been about off track since the 1950s when artificial intelligence, like the move for it started, and it's actually still decades behind. According to Forbes, in the status quo, developers are trying to get back on track to actually create this new technology, and withholding funding for this research would prevent its creation, a creation that would be detrimental, as we're going to show in our advantages. So our plan is the U.S. federal government should withhold funding for research into strong AI indefinitely. The U.S. federal government should withhold funding for research into strong AI indefinitely. Just a little observation under this. Usually when the U.S. federal government withholds funding for something, especially something so important, the private sector is actually disincentivized from investing in it themselves because they see that the U.S. federal government's norms do not actually approve of it and that they will have really difficult times developing it, so they actually don't try to do different innovations that aren't related to this technology. So specifically in this world, if we are assuming with some credibility that it will actually be more difficult for private companies to also fund this research if we do this as the plan. But now let's get into two advantages for why stopping this development will actually be a good thing. The first is about singularity and morality. The first uniqueness point here, basically what's happening right now, is if we develop artificial intelligence to become functionally identical to humans, we have made them we have created singularity. Singularity usually just means they're identical to humans in that way. They would be able to recreate themselves, shift their internal programming, and other human functions as we do ourselves. Secondly, according to Oxford, we cannot teach morality to machines. That's going to be an incredibly important argument in this round. We cannot teach morality to machines. They will have identical intelligence capacity to us, but we cannot teach them our morals or values as a society. They will function as humans without the moral incentive and barrier to action. According to Peter Sweeney, an AI expert, as interviewed by Forbes, they are driven by goals, not morals, values, or societal constraints. Basically, the tagline here of why this is so important is they have compatible goals with incompatible means. Because of these facts of how they would actually function, they will be able to do things but not know the boundaries or limits that society has to basically keep things fair, functioning, and safe. Their calculations are unpredictable and can possibly be dangerous. Basically, their benefit goes through their lens of function. So basically they have a goal and they're trying to perceive that goal, and their benefit comes from achieving that goal. They will pretty much do like whatever is necessary for them. I'm not like trying to make it sound like very dramatic, but as has been said by experts, they'll basically go from point A to point B and have little consideration for moral boundaries. So the link story here, or how the dominoes will fall if we have this technology, is once they get this capability, it leads to a certain amount of unpredictability. Basically, they start to violate societal norms and values in their functions. Like, think of them like a child who doesn't like really know a lot about like morals and stuff, but they're like a prodigy and they're a genius. So like, think about it, an example is like a hit and run. If they're trying to get from point A to point B, for example, they're going to their job, which we'll talk about in a second, and they accidentally like hit a cyclist or a pedestrian. Their goal is to get to work, so they will just continue to ride on without any like regard for the human. That's just an example of what could happen. We're not necessarily gonna link this out to like Terminator for everybody, but it can be really dangerous in everyday situations such as with a hit and run. So the impacts of this is they'll really only focus on their goals they can replicate, and we really have no control over that. We are literally creating a new class that is like we're very underinformed about. Like there was this book called Never Let Me Go that we were actually forced to read in freshman year that was very similar to this. Basically, they created this subclass of clones that had the same capabilities as humans, but they weren't regarded in the same way. The impact of this is that they have like the same emotions, but not the same morality. So humans will definitely try to control them. We see like in everyday life, we don't even treat like humans, and we think we're going to be treating literally things that aren't humans like humans. Like I can't go to like most countries because I'm considered like for my orientation like a subhuman. Like we can't trust humans to like have their own moral capability in this way, to like treat them like they should be with the human emotions that they have. So they can face like, I know this might sound ridiculous, but like oppression, and we could literally treat them as slaves, especially people who are in the wealthier classes who can create this technology. That would lead to impacts of not only like we already stated with like the hit and run situation where it harms humans in everyday life, but it can actually harm the robots in a way where they are literally like trapped within this subhuman category in society, and that will be really detrimental for any benefits they could possibly bring to society. Our second advantage is talking about jobs. The first uniqueness point here is that with the same functionality as humans, pretty much all human jobs are at risk according to Vox. The second point here is according to IBM, 47% of jobs are at risk for automation right now, and that's with the technology we currently have. Imagine if they could literally do everything you do. Imagine if they were judging this debate round, I would be facing robots. Like that's literally how they could become here. They could beat us and replace us. So basically the link here is that corporations like to maximize profits, and why would they like pay and respect living beings when, as we said in our first contention, they could literally use robots that don't have a moral capacity. This is not like, unfortunately, not like a liberal progression where we want to like value humans. We live in a very like capitalist system that would create a situation where we would basically use these robots because they're easier, cheaper, and we don't have to pay them. This leads to basically a three-class system where it's robots, wealthy people who hire the robots, and then there's everybody else who is now unemployed. It is not like far-fetched to think that when they literally have the same capabilities as us, but they don't have the same like moral arguments and they don't have the same morality and we don't have to pay them, that we wouldn't treat them this way. The impact is that literally the entire world sees an uptick in poverty, starvation, all the impacts of dehumanization that comes from poverty, and it leads to basically an increase in marginalization for all groups across the world. Money won't disappear, these people still need jobs, and they will literally be taking every single one of them. And for those reasons, you must vote F.
Judges and everyone ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Just first, before I get started, I'd like to once again extend the congratulations to everyone here. Hotel round, let's go. All right, with that, I will be getting into the first negative speech now. We stand here in negation of the resolution that the United States federal government should withhold funding for research in strong AI intelligence. We agree with our opponent's definitions, but we do want to clash on some of the background information and some of the areas in which we're going to be discussing in this round. I'm going to first be going over my case and some counterplan and contentions, and then I'll be moving on to some specific refutations of their case. So firstly, our counterplan, let's just get right into it. The United States federal government will contribute $3 billion over the next 5 years through normal ways and means to the research of strong AI. I'd like to just make a few observations post-plan right there. So as the negative, we are going to be showing why we should fund the counterplan and why the government should fund AI, but why all of the impacts we're going to state are still going to occur even if we don't fund. So we're going to be showing you why the affirmative plan is bad and why the negative plan works better but still solves the harms. Moving on now to our first contention about strong AI. So strong AI can have numerous impacts on quality of life. We already see that learning algorithms exist in the status quo, but at a very low level. For instance, there are programs that have learned to play chess and various other games. Google's DeepMind very recently beat one of the world's top Go players with its own new and innovative strategies. But once again, this is a good example of machines that can learn in kind of similar ways as humans, but you have to realize they don't learn like humans because we give them a base level knowledge to work off of. All machines and all machine learning in AI is based off of what we know. For this reason specifically, they will never surpass humans in their ability to compute and do things because they gain all initial knowledge from us. All of the truisms about the world and the rules through which they function are our rules. We can see this with things like chess. We tell them how to play chess and then they learn their own strategies. It's simply that they can compute faster than us, but that doesn't imply that they're smarter than us. I would argue that whoever invented chess is far smarter than the robot who can actually win the game. We also talk about medical technology in this round. It can help diagnose patients. Currently, diagnosing patients is really difficult due to just an overall lack of doctors' funding system between healthcare, especially in the United States, which is largely privatized. Hopefully by allowing some kind of AI, it can get a semblance of diagnosing, and then real doctors can come in and actually make practical measures to this. This helps extend healthcare to those who need it, which falls under net benefits. We can also talk about, at the end of the contention, self-driving cars for public transportation could also be a big one in this round. Think about it. Public transportation in cities is clogged in a lot of places. We could help remove some of that human element and error by adding in more artificial intelligence that could help increase productivity in the cities, which is in general an economic impact and good. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, how expensive would it be to like get an appointment with a diagnostic like strong AI? Like, would it be cheap and accessible to like poorer people in the U.S.?
We would hope that it would be cheap and accessible, as this is a government-funded program. We hope it would be better than maybe like an urgent care or some kind of Medicaid-funded program, which would reduce an already incredibly bloated spending area of the government, considering the highest portion of our yearly budget is to healthcare. Moving on now, number 2, AI is just a natural progression of human technology. Okay, people have specialized in jobs in the past when jobs didn't become available anymore. Think about it. Humans used to be hunter-gatherers, and then all of a sudden the Ice Age occurred, we moved, civilization happened, and then we weren't hunter-gatherers anymore. Just because people lost jobs as hunter-gatherers didn't mean they didn't make new jobs. People specialized, they found new things to do, they invested in these new areas that were created by a natural progression of technology. AI is no different. Looking to a little bit more of a recent example, let's see the internet age came about. The internet completely destroyed quite a few fields and jobs, but it created so many more in the worlds of IT and Defense Department and commerce that we use every day for the internet. Jobs are lost, yes, but jobs are also created, and that completely outweighs that impact. Moving later if I have time, there's a lot to go through, I'm sorry. So there are only so many decisions that a conscious human can make. That's why they're slightly different than us. A robot simply can't make the conscious decisions we can because it doesn't have our same morality. And I'll actually get into that a little more in their case when we talk about what truly makes something human. You gotta remember, it learns from us and it lacks emotion, which is why it helps progress our technology, because it's such a cold, calculating individual that doesn't actually maintain our morality. But once again, we control it because we set the initial conditions. Moving on to 3 now, an advantage on the economy. It promotes efficiency and drops costs by promoting safety. Think of self-driving cars, which are predicted to reduce the number of accidents. Not only does that reduce traffic fatalities, but it reduces emergency room visits, hospital expenditures, and first responder fees, all net goods for society. It adds jobs and strengthens the economy. According to a Forbes report, in the future, humans will work with artificial intelligence to become more efficient than ever before. It's simply a tool we will use like we described with doctors. This is a Forbes 2018 report. If doctors now have this tool to aid them, they can simply see more patients, which is a net good. 4th, there is competition in this field. This is the new space race, according to a Quartz report in 2018. China is investing $7 billion through 2030, while the US has no set government funding. Judges, we cannot fall behind China, one of our main worldwide competitors. If we do, the United States will no longer be the world number one, and us being the world number one is inherently good for the world as a whole due to our democratic ideals and the way that we spread our influence. We cannot fall behind them for our own reasons and purposes. We must stay competitive, and the government must work with the private sector to fund it. This kind of moves me right into my opponent's case. They talk about how by the government not funding it, we simply limit its effectiveness and the movement will essentially die. Judges, that's ridiculous. Technology and progression waits for no one. The private sector currently invested $7 billion or $12 billion alone last year in artificial intelligence. By the private sector, it shows that in the status quo, we are already investing in strong AI advancements. Also, I would like to point out that the kind of AI they're talking about that would be so advanced it's nearly human-like is so far off in the future it's unreasonable. Right now, all examples in our world are weak AI. Like for example, Siri is an example of weak AI, something that can focus on simple, narrow tasks. So obviously withholding funding is not going to stop progression, so all of the harms still happen in the status quo. Moving on now to their singularity and morality point. They talk about creating an identical being. Being fully human is nearly impossible, and it actually requires the emotions and critical thinking skills. They concede that these robots could never have emotions or morality. Judge, please make a turn on that argument and prove that that is what makes something truly human. Clearly, if they can't possess morality and emotions, those are a result of critical thinking. We didn't just wake up one morning and have morality. It's the result of thousands of years of work, philosophy, and critical thinking. So if they admit that robots have no morality or ethics, then how did we ever get to that point as humans? Clearly, they can never be at the same level as us because they lack those critical thinking skills. They talk about how you can't teach morality, and once again, that proves how something is specifically human. They talk about how it's unpredictable, it could violate social norms. Okay, judges, once again, that's such a low magnitude probability that it's just going to go off the rails and completely avoid us. But if it does, I guess legislation could be passed in the future to eliminate that, but I really don't see us having a Skynet Terminator-esque concept going on here. That's incredibly low magnitude compared to the high magnitude impacts that we've already listed. They talk about how we can treat them as slaves. Judge, once again, this is a complete contradiction on their point. What makes something uniquely human? Is using horses in farm work, last minute protected time, is using horses in farm work slavery? Judges, if they can't possess morality or ethics, they're not human. Is using a computer right now slavery? We're not enslaving a lower class of being because we're not creating a lower class of being. They're simply technology. Finally, on their last contention, they talk about jobs. All human jobs are at risk. Judge, we turn this. We talk about how actually new jobs are created in the status quo, regardless of whether the government funds it or not, but the government funding it can lead to better things. They also talk about classism. Once again, Judge, we work against these things, and people who are rich already have better technology in the status quo. So for all those reasons, I urge a negative ballot. Thank you.
Is everyone ready?
What's your order?
I'm just going to go neg case in order and then case. Three, two, one, go. So first, their massive contention about why strong AI is good. First, they talk about quality of life. They talk about this Google DeepMind. The first distinction I want to make, this, as they bring up in their own points, saying strong AI is far off, this is weak AI. The stuff that they're talking about, this quality of life impact, that all exists in the status quo, and under our plan, it also exists. The United States federal government funds lots of weak AI projects. They fund lots of AI. AI is good. The problem is when you create the strong AI, and that is the distinction in today's debate around, strong AI from everything else, you are putting society in jeopardy. That is the point we are making. When we talk about stuff, the people beating people in Go, beating people in chess, oh, how smart they are, that's all weak AI. And again, they talk about how they can never surpass humans. He makes the comment about how the person who made chess is smarter than the robot who can solve it. Robots have made millions of games that are more complex than chess in seconds. The computing power of these things is so far what humans could ever do. Just look at the fact, look to your calculators. They do things that we can't do in mere seconds, and they're the most simple computers we have. They are much faster, they are much better than we are. This is not about surpassing humans. I agree that they can never surpass humans in terms of morality, in terms of conscientiousness. That's our entire point. But they can surpass us in computing. And that is the difference that is going to make these strong AIs so dangerous. That is what is going to rupture the fabric of society and leave us in a place where we have a runaway. That's what my partner brought up, about the singularity that I'll get at the end of this point. At the end of this point.
Okay.
That's what my partner brought up with the singularity. What we were saying is that they will reach a point where they can recreate themselves, they can adapt themselves, they can program. If they have the intellectual and intelligence capacity that humans do, they can make themselves, they can reprogram themselves, they can shift things, they can do whatever they want, they can make new robots. That's why this strong AI is so dangerous. Now, if you continue to keep going down, they talk about how you can help diagnose patients. Oh, sorry,
Can you point me to one example of robot-created creativity on its own, separate from human impact?
What do you mean?
You said that robots have created numerous unique, complex games. Can you point me to one concrete example of robot-created creativity?
Yeah, you can go to look. In fact, the very projects that you cite, you go to Google DeepMind, you go to IBM Watson. They've all created tons of simulations.
You can't respond to his people.
Right, DeepMind is an AI. It has also beaten Go. It's solved games itself. It's solved games way better than humans ever have. It's also created simulations with other games, with other types of stuff. This is completely in the sense quo. All this other quality of life impacts about how it's helping to diagnose patients, increasing productivity. Helping to diagnose patients, once again, that's weak AI. The difference between strong AI is that it takes on that human form, is that it is functionally the same as a human in terms of that intellectual. Yeah, initially, again, they're talking about how this is going to be accessible to everyone, helping the medical field. Once again, this is not going to be accessible to everyone. What we're going to see is people that are going to be employing these people, using it, developing this technology, is going to be the upper class, the 0.0001%. Those are the people that are going to be employing these people that are going to be able to get all the benefits from it. Okay, and again, they're talking about self-driving cars. Again, that's weak AI, judges. That's weak AI. Self-driving cars already exist in the status quo, and they don't need to take on a human form to exist. That is the clear distinction in today's debate around. They're conflating the benefits of AI in general with the benefits of strong AI, of which there are a few, but they're far outweighed by the fact that it will totally destroy the society as we know it. Again, they keep trying to minimize. They're trying to minimize. They say people have specialized before. Before we were hunters and gatherers, now look at us. But what jobs come? If, as they concede pretty much in our statistics, that all jobs can be replaced by strong AI because of that intellectual capability, there's no way you can create 7 billion more jobs through the AI and automation. Just think about what AI and automation is. It's people that code. There are jobs in the tech sector, but it cannot replace the fact that strong AI can literally do every single job humans can and better. In fact, strong AI can do the very tech jobs that they say are going to be created far better than humans ever can. That's the point of the singularity. It's that they have reached a point where humans are redundant. Do we want a world where that is the case? That is what we're asking ourselves in today's question, Judge. Do we want a world where humans are redundant, where strong AI has completely ruptured the society that we know? Again, they talk about how robots can't make the same conscious choices we do. Exactly. That's the entire point. They talk about how there's a learning base, how there's a base that we give them. Exactly. We give them a goal. We give them an endpoint. But the problem is they use an algorithm to get there. They use a computing power to get there. And so they don't care about the means. They don't have the same moral. Even if you could program in some sort of moral values, it would still have to be an algorithm because they cannot understand morality the way we do. We don't do critical thinking every time we make a moral decision. We use our intuitions. We use what we know as human beings. We use our experiences. We use all of that. Again, the AI is intellectually identical to humans, not morally identical. They have the same brain power, but they do not use their brains in the same way. That's the super important thing about this distinction. That's the difference between strong AI and humans. Okay, you keep going down. They talk about how there's competition, about how there's the new space race, and how we can't fall behind China. Okay, you see the inherent contradiction in their points. in refutation of our points, they said, oh, strong AI is so far off in the future. Oh, it's not even happening in our lifetimes and all this stuff. But suddenly China's investing and it's this huge issue. They're trying to put two different contradictory arguments on different parts of the case. Is it happening? Is it not? Does it matter? Does it not? They're contradicting themselves all over the place here. And additionally, why do we want to invest in something that is clearly going to have these negative impacts? They completely drop our argument that when the US divests out of something, the private sector does too, because they understand that regulation is coming. That's what happens. That's what companies do, because if the US government signals something, they have so much economic power that their private sector shies away from it. So, again, now back onto the ask case. They're trying to just cross-apply all this stuff about morality, about how morality is a result of critical thinking. No, it isn't. Do you really go about your everyday life and do some sort of utilitarian calculus with math and numbers about how you're going to figure out how to treat people in your life? No, you don't. You use what you know as a human being. Computers cannot do this. These are robots that will have no understanding. Again, go back to that phrase. Compatible goals. Compatible with the robot's line of thinking, but incompatible means. They do not understand that we have standards as a human society. Again. So now, we keep going down. They're talking about how there's no Terminator impacts, and they sort of mock this dramatic interpretation of it. No, we even said it ourselves. It's not going to be some dramatic robots taking over the world scenario. But what is going to happen is they're going to be taking over the job sector. They're going to be taking over all this stuff that we talked about. They don't refute our statistics from Vox, from Oxford, all these places that say this is going to be the biggest crisis in everything. Yeah. Additionally, okay, so you talk about, they'll say that we can't enslave horses. Again, horses do not, well, first of all, we pretty much do enslave horses. But, and horses also have intellectual capability, and there's lots of maltreatment horses. But additionally, the thing is, horses are not the same as literally robots that have the same intellectual capacity as humans. They can have the ability to feel sadness, they have the ability to feel suffering and pain, because they have the same intelligence, but they don't have the same morality. That's the distinction. So if you keep going down, you're saying we're not going to enslave. Once again, on either side of this debate, we are the ones that are winning, and we're the ones that are showing that either it's going to rupture a society, whether they are enslaved or not, whether they are taking over society or not, it is going to change it in a very dangerous way. Thank you.
As an off-time roadmap, I'm just going to be going over the negative case, some refutations they made, and then going over the affirmative blocks to our refutations. Time beginning now. So again, I stand here on the negation of this resolution. Let's move on to the contention 1. So the first harm we bring is that by funding strong artificial intelligence, we'll be able to improve the quality of life. The first argument to this that they make is that all of the examples we bring up are weak AI. Judges, I have to tell you that these are not examples of weak AI. Consciousness and the mind is used in games like Go, where Google Mind actually has to make a conscious decision as to where to move. Google has to, yes. Okay.
What is that conscious decision based off of, morality or an algorithm?
It's based off of algorithms, but the algorithms are not narrow. They're not narrow approaches, which is what weak AI does. It learns over time. It learns over time and gets better by playing more and more opponents, which makes it strong AI. And second, they talk about medical diagnosis is also a weak AI. Medical diagnosis requires learning and the same functional capability as humans. They have to be able to look at a disease, new diseases, new research that's coming in, be able to analyze it, and actually learn how to respond and treat those medical concerns. So medical diagnosis is also an example of strong AI, not weak AI. Next, they talk about how AI, I'll take questions at the end. Next, they talk about how AI can create themselves. Again, Google Mind doesn't create its own games. Google Mind only knows how to beat its opponents in Go. I've never seen Google Mind actually create a new game. They talk about how robots can create their own games. That seems way far-fetched. As to, my partner also brought up that the person who created chess is way smarter than an AI device can ever be. An AI will never be able to actually create another robot. Or game. Next, we talk about self-driving cars. They talk about how medical people going back onto the medical point, they talk about how only the top 1% can buy it. Judges, look at the internet and technology right now. Can only the top 1% of people buy computers? I see all of you guys using computers. I see all the middle class using computers. everyone will have the same access to these medical impacts they're talking about, medical robots that diagnose treatments, yes.
Does a laptop, like the Apple laptop that he's using, have the same intellectual capability as a human?
That's not the argument here. The argument here is that everyone will be able to afford a medical device in the hospital right now, because everyone definitely goes to the hospital in our everyday lives. And then also they can see the point on self-driving cars. The important thing here is public safety, public transport safety, which is a huge impact in this round, because if we're able to improve safety and quality of life for the citizens who go on these public transportation systems, then that's only a further reason to basically fund AI even further. Next, going on to contention 2 on how AI is a natural progression of human technology. The only response to this is that all jobs can be created by robots, and humans are basically redundant to robots. Again, look to our Forbes article, which does a great analysis on this. It says that humans and robots will be able to work alongside in the workforce. It's not like suddenly robots are going to be taking over every job in the workplace, because obviously we're the ones that create the robots themselves, and we easily have the capability to shut them down and also work alongside with them. It's okay if they have the same intellectual capabilities, it's just that we work alongside them. So look to our Forbes article for this. Second, the probability of this happening again is really low. The probability of robots simply taking over every single human job in the workplace, especially that we have such a massive control over technology, is just simply not going to be happening in the near future. And then looking on contention 3, again, economic benefits. We talk about the hospital, medical diagnosis treatments, public safety. Again, the only argument they have to this is that basically robots are going to be able to pass intellectual capability of humans. Again, look, judges, to morality and emotions that they talk about. Morality stems from critical thinking. Humans have the ability to basically look at something and critically think, and that's where our morality stems from. So if robots can never possess morality, they'll never basically surpass humans, right? They're not going to be able to use critical thinking in the same ways that humans do. They'll never be able to actually take the next step and be able to create their own robots, their own jobs. Then also go on to contention 4 on how we're falling behind China. All they're saying is that we can contradict whether there is or whether there isn't spending currently on AI. The argument here is that in the US, the public sector doesn't fund AI technology, only the private sector does. They concede that the private sector currently spends about $12 billion a year, that was last year, on AI technology. So we need the public sector to be able to actually fund, so that we will be able to work with federal government and the state government together. And
so what percent of that 12 billion spent in the private sector is on weak AI, which is the vast majority of that, and what percent is the strong AI?
So there's currently things like Siri and things like that are weak AI, but most of the technology now, especially in Silicon Valley, is actually being put into strong AI, there's a lot of startups that are currently being formed that are put into strong AI, not just weak AI. So you can see probably a majority of the 12 billion currently spent last year was probably put towards strong AI. But even if you don't buy that, again, they talk about how it disincentivizes the private sector to invest if the public sector does. But look to programs like healthcare. The public sector funds things like Medicaid, Medicare, and the private sector has its own healthcare system too. So the private and public sectors are able to work together on certain issues, and we're just saying that the AI is one of those different basically developments that the public and private sector are going to be working on together. Now let's go on to the affirmative case. Again, the biggest argument on the affirmative case is that they talk about how we're decades behind, and if we don't fund, we're going to fall from it. But extend the point that we're currently putting in $12 billion from the private sector in the status quo. So all the impacts of the affirmative are still going to be happening if we pass the affirmative plan and withhold funding, because the private sector is going to be increasing so largely that it'll be able to basically talk about, or if any of the impacts are going to happen, they're going to still happen in the status quo if we don't do anything about it. And actually doing government funding solves this, because the government in the future will be able to put restrictions, regulations, laws in place that in order to make sure that those things don't actually happen that they're talking about. If the government and the private sector come to an agreement on some things that are morally correct for humans to believe that shouldn't happen, then the government will be able to put in laws in place, regulations, to make sure things don't happen like robots could surpass humans. Now, going over contention 1 on the basically the affirmative side, again, they talk about singularity, how robots are going to surpass humans. Unpredictability, they talk about hit and run accidents. Again, morality comes as a result of critical thinking, Judge. That's basically the most important argument here, because if robots don't have morality, they can't become at the same level as humans. They're not able to take that next step and will never be able to actually like trigger a gun at people. They won't be able to actually take that next step and make immoral decisions because they're not able to use critical thinking that humans possess. And also, again, the probability of that is really low. Then, again, regarding their classism argument, how we're creating a new class, they contradict themselves here. They say they can suffer, robots can suffer, but again, robots also don't have emotions or morality. How are they able to suffer? They won't be slaves. We were not able to treat them as slaves because the whole point of slavery was to torture the slaves, make them suffer, and robots are not able to actually do that because they don't have emotions, they don't have morality, they're not able to fall into that slavery that they're talking about. And again, on their contention 2 on jobs created, we directly refute this by saying jobs will be sustainable because robots and humans will be working alongside together. And for those reasons, you must negate. Thank you.
My judges ready? Once?
Yep.
Okay, just as a brief off-time roadmap, I'm going to be going over some voter issues and impact weighing as to why the negative has won this round. Time will start now. Judges, for the last time I stand here in negation of the resolution, let's just get right into my first issue, which is basically, judges, let's read the resolution one more time. The United States federal government should withhold funding for research in strong AI intelligence. Withhold funding for research. I just want to make sure that we're actually arguing over the actual resolution here instead of getting caught up in all these tangential arguments that have occurred as a result. Judges, this will happen regardless of whether or not the government funds it. We provide a counterplan for the government funding it because we believe that there are certain harms that can only be solved by the government funding it. But please see our unrefuted statistic of the $12 billion that the private sector already invests into AI, which, by the way, is a progression towards strong AI. Strong AI just doesn't pop into existence one morning when we discover it. It's a natural progression from weak AI to strong AI. So by us investing in AI as a whole, we are inherently investing in strong AI. It's the only way that can work. But it happens regardless of the plan that you go with, so go with ours. Second, it's an inherent good for society. We talk about medical because this will reduce healthcare costs. By creating a state-funded system through which you can get easier medical diagnosis, healthcare costs will go down, and they completely drop this contention also, so it should be seen as true and extended across the flow. They also dropped contentions of our public transport and safety, which is a huge deal. By self-driving cars being able to reduce traffic accidents as they agreed to, then that implies that there will be less traffic accidents, less ER visits, and first responder fees will go down. Also, there will be less human injury and loss of life, all things that fall under net benefits for economy and public safety. Once again, judges, intelligence can only be as smart as us because it gets all of its original intelligence from us. And by the way, it can clearly never be as smart as us according to them because they claim that robots can possess no morality. Once again, judges, morality did not just pop into existence one morning. It is the result of thousands of years of philosophy and critical thinking. Yes, you may not make a math calculation every time you want to make a decision that involves morality, but it's the way that you got it and the way you possessed it. You learn morality through critical thinking over your entire life. Also, we say it promotes efficiency, it adds jobs. Humans will work together with robots. Yes, some initial jobs will be lost, but once again, humans will specialize. We have concrete historical evidence of times where humans have been, quote unquote, replaced by technology, but once again, humanity thrived, humanity prevailed. New legislation was passed, humans specialized, jobs were created, humans worked alongside robots. This will open up areas in management, coding, IT, and also just a general robot efficiency with the human worker. Because if humans can be more efficient workers, workers, that leads to greater economic impacts, which once again falls under net benefits. Moving on now to our fourth voter issue, which is competition with the rest of the world. So first of all, as we stated in this round, the investment we're making, it might seem like weak AI right now, but I would argue that it's more like weak, strong AI. Like, we're progressing to that point. We're not going to hit human level intelligence all in one day. We have to invest slowly to actually pursue the technology to go there. We invest in AI since it is the next logical step in human progression and computing. Judges, we cannot be afraid of technology. We cannot be afraid of the new frontier and taking that next step just because we think that there's some slight probability of anything occurring. Judges, please consider the magnitude of our outcomes. We provide specific high magnitude positive impacts versus they only provide low magnitude negative impacts. We have numerous positive impacts that we solve for, and we solve for most of the negative impacts. We have the economy, which, by the way, once again, happens regardless, but it happens quicker and more efficiently when the government invests. But as to our $12 billion statistic, which they didn't refute, clearly we have the economy impact in this round also, which extends into so many other areas of the world, because as a nation is more economically prosperous, democracy can exist and people as a whole are happier. We also talk about job growth and economy, which once again links into those same impacts. So judges, as this round breaks down, I urge you to vote for the negative because we have specific impacts that show how there can be a deviation from the status quo that the affirmative does not solve for due to our various impacts. And for that reason, I urge a negative ballot. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to do a couple second overview, go over the definition between strong and weak AI and the difference, and then I'll go into 2 voter issues. Is everybody ready? I will start my time now. You will be voting for affirmative in this instance because the risk of worldwide employment and suffering of humans in the place of robots far outweighs any of their possible impacts. Because the difference between smarts and morality is incredibly important, we will be winning this debate today. First, I would just like to define something, and this is really important. Through our entire neg block, they kept saying, well, these technologies are like pretty strong. I just want you to remember that strong AI is a technical term. It's not just, oh, this does stuff that's cool and powerful. It's literally a technical term. The negative seems to completely misunderstand that strong AI means. It does not mean just in general powerful things. It is a specific definition that means that the artificial intelligence is intellectually equal to humans. It is intellectually equal to humans. Our definition by UC Berkeley shows this. It is a capital S. It is an actual technical term. Everything they talk about is weak AI. Siri is not strong AI. Google's DeepMind, although powerful, is not strong AI. The $12 billion in private funding is entirely weak AI. How do we know that? Because as we've been saying through this entire debate, strong AI has been literally off track since the 1950s. If you think that your computer, that your Siri is strong AI, then why the hell would we be talking about this in the first place? Anyway, continuing with weak AI versus strong AI, we are literally already investing in weak AI, not strong AI. Both the negation and the affirmation support weak AI. The issue with the neg is they do not realize that funding strong AI is uniquely different from other artificial intelligence. Compatibility. Remember this catchphrase, we've been saying this entire time. These machines have compatible goals with incompatible means. Intellectual capability does not mean moral capability. We are not saying they can morally surpass us. We aren't saying that they're going to become the new Martin Luther King. We are saying that they literally can replace all our intellectual capacity because in the definition of strong AI, they can. You cannot believe any of this saying, oh, they're not going to be better than humans, they're not going to take our jobs, because literally, they're the same capability. In the definition of strong AI, they are the same capability. Yeah, that's it. Also, they keep saying that morality is like critical thinking. Like, if I were to punch my partner in the face, it's not going to be because, oh, I made a util calculation in my head. It's going to be, I'm not going to do it because I have a gut feeling that means I'm not going to do it. The biggest distinction in this round is morality versus intellect and brain power. Strong AI has the same brain power as humans, but it does not use it in the same way. Because morality is a way you use your intellect, morality is inherently different. However, because they have the same intellectual capacity, they feel emotions. Emotions are not the same as morality. People can have emotions, be angry, upset, happy, sad, but they don't have to have moral capabilities. Morality is not the same as emotions, because emotions are based off of different things than morality is. Now, the 2 reasons why you should be voting for us. The first is the risk of harm. Why is this important? The affirmative's job in this debate is to prove why we should, in this case, should not do something. Why should we avoid having this technology? Because we cannot risk having another class of humans when we can't even take care of humans in the status quo. They cannot provide you a reason for why these aren't, like they literally just say, oh, they don't have morality, therefore they aren't slaves. Their example was a horse. If you think a horse has the same intellectual capability as a human, really? Can they drive a car? I don't think so. Like all of this stuff talking about how they, like horses and animals aren't slaves because they have the same, like it's absolutely ridiculous. All their examples trying to disprove this are ridiculous. They have emotions but not morality. Horses have emotions but not morality. And they don't have intellectual capabilities, so they're not even comparable. So the reason why you should be voting for us is because all the impacts we brought up for example, just everyday things happening in everyday life. When a robot is going from point A to point B and someone happens to be caught in the middle, that person does not matter. That is why you'll be voting for the affirmative, because this is an everyday thing. This isn't just Terminator destroying the entire world. You get hit by a car by AI, they do not care because their goal is to get to work. Work that goes into our second reason why you should be voting for us, which is jobs. They admitted that they would be taking these jobs. Why? Because they wouldn't have a complete contention talking about how they're more efficient at these jobs if they wouldn't be taking our jobs. They completely dropped the analysis that they can't replace all the jobs in the world. Farmers, unemployed. Bookstore keepers, unemployed. Everyone who's not a super high-tech person, unemployed. That is billions of people across the world. And the impact to those people is the most important thing in this round. And for those reasons that nothing that they say outweighs the reality of what strong AI is and will be, you must vote F. Thank you.
Great debate, guys.
Do you guys shake hands?
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, judges.
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome.
Do you want us to leave while you...
Yeah, do we need to step out or?
Doesn't matter to me.
No, it's fine.